Hello world, I'm Cecelia Sterling and these are the adventures of Super Chick, and I have a story to share. So in many ways, COVID, I thought, was similar to having a newborn, that sort of life experience, because there's this heightened concern about hand washing. There is a lot of isolation, and there's sort of this increased fear around the state of the world, right? And I talked about it a lot with people when we were like processing how we felt about COVID. I'd be like, this is a lot like when I brought my daughter home for the first, I don't know, few weeks, few months, few years. Hard to give an endpoint to a lot of those emotions. But there was a real parallel there for me. And that being said, I had a bit of a cushion because I was staying home with my daughter for the most part. So I didn't have a huge experience at work that was different from before. I had a couple of families that had children that we made conscious efforts to play with. So we still had some connection and play with her, those were similar families we would have played with or without COVID. And, there's nothing you can really do about the fear that you have about the state of the world. And I had really big emotional experiences around COVID, and that's a whole nother story. But I was often aware that while we lived in San Diego, so it was relatively warm out all year, we could still go play at the playground every day like we would have had there not been a pandemic, right? So I was really aware of this sort of cushion that I had in taking care of her in these challenging times. That being said, one day I realized the library is open. Now, not all libraries were open, but one was open and I could take her there. And it was like a lifeboat. You mean I could go to a communal place and all I have to do is wear a mask and put a mask on her? Like, that felt like nothing. I can go to a communal place where other people are also raising children around her age. So, I am an extrovert. I'd never realized how extroverted I was until COVID. So I can go to this space and have a casual conversation with another person, and I can be in an interior space that's safe for children, and I don't have to restrict her movements. All I have to do is put a mask on her. And there's a toddler story time, and other people could actually help me take care of her that I haven't paid, or I don't have to vet necessarily because they already work for this public organization. And there's a whole giant room with new books to read. We read all the time. Lots of the same books on repeat. Lots of things are on repeat with a little one, right? So the library opening is like, ah! And we go and we have a wonderful time. And we start checking out books every week. And I have these lofty goals of diverse books by diverse authors and illustrators, and meaningful, valuable messaging, incredible illustrations. I want to support cool authors and illustrators, right? And I can get a little too lofty in my goals and sometimes even lose sight of the day-to-day experience. But I'm trying to be a really good mom, right? And so after a particularly heavy load, and what I mean is not only do we get a lot of books and they're physically very heavy to carry to the car, and sometimes I have to pick her up too. They're really emotional, these books. I'm crying. There's these big, expansive experiences being described. And sometimes it's heavy emotional lifting in the processing of the stories being shared in these children's books. That's partly why I think adults need children's books as much as, if not more than, little ones. Anyway, so after this particularly heavy week of books, it happens to be Halloween season. And the next time I go to the library, I'm getting silly, lighthearted, candy. I'm getting books about candy, literally and figuratively, right? I'm so ready for some lighter reads. And so we gather books that week, and some we read in the library, but some we don't read till we get home. And when we get home, I'm really excited to be reading her a book about Halloween. It turns out to be a story of an immigrant family's first Halloween in the US. And by the end, I'm fully crying. Wow, I'm just really attracted to these deeper stories, right? Oh, so funny now to reflect on it. But at the time, the story was so beautiful, and Halloween can be so loaded. Whether it's like, should I home make the costume or just buy it? Did she change her mind at the last minute and now we're using Amazon to have it delivered in 12 hours? How are we becoming this other person, right? Or it's just, in this case, this family having all of this interest in the play, in the desire to be someone else for a day, to not be seen as different in the community that they've just moved into, to have the costume speak more and their words not be quite as essential on this particular evening. So then their accent isn't playing the same role it's been playing all day, every day since they moved in, right? And the story is so beautiful. And the mom is scared, and the kids are a little braver, honestly, in some of the explorations of this new culture. But ultimately, they're all navigating a new culture, a new language, and new traditions, Halloween being one of them. Well, the mother gets super brave and dresses up, and it empowers the kids, and they find the universal language of chocolate. And lots of the sort of loftier, bigger things going on in life melt down to a more digestible level as they play in their costumes and eat their treats. An abundance of treats, which is one of the things that happens in many communities in the United States on Halloween. And chocolate is so delicious, isn't it? My daughter doesn't even eat all the candy that she obtains on Halloween, but she plays with it. She organizes it. She talks about it. She plays Halloween at other times of the year and uses the candy that now has expired and we will never eat just as a prop in her play. Everything can be so many things, right? And to my point of like wanting to be this really great mom who reads these lofty stories, I have to remember, and I've heard research even since I've attracted it to myself to calm myself down, I think. It's the very reading to her regularly that creates the self-confidence, connection, and resilience that gives her the tools to cope with the emotions of all the adventures in this life, right? So whether the story comes from this author or that author, our sitting together and reading it is ultimately what's going to support her as she navigates her adventures. And that connection time is sort of helping me heal my inner child too, helping me learn the names for the emotions I'm having as I navigate this giant adventure of parenting. With that, I'll say ciao for now. These are the adventures of Super Chick.